Welcome to the first ever Lash guide. How to be an... Recently, they nerfed Lash by not giving him stamina on his grapple, and also you get one less grapple charge from rapid recharge. This does not, however, change any way how you play him. You just need to be slightly less aggressive, and it just means that you have to prioritize buying superior stamina a little bit earlier, which is already updated in my guide that you can find in-game. Lash is, in my opinion, the coolest hero in the game. He has insane mobility, and we are going to go through a replay that I played a few days ago and see how I play Lash. So first, you can see now that I'm hiding here to try to go in close to get melee last hits. Like there, got one. I'm basically just trying to shove the lane. So when you're laning against McGinnis, she has a very strong lane shove. So laning against McGinnis, it's really important to counter the lane shove by also trying to push back. With Lash, when I play solo lane, I usually skill Flog first. You're not really gonna get kills this early on unless they make a mistake. So I usually pick Flog first just for the extra lifesteal and harass. And yeah, I'm kind of just focusing on last. You can see already now, I'm quite far ahead in last hits compared to the McGinnis. And she's kind of just... Oh god, that's a lot of harass. One thing about McGinnis is you'll be surprised how much damage she suddenly does when her minigun spins up. So that's something to be wary about. So my natural first item here is extra regen, simply because it gives you a lot of lane sustain, some extra ammo, so it's easier to last hit as well. And this is a pretty straightforward laning stage. Lash is not the strongest in the laning stage, so usually when you get in higher elo lobbies, you're actually usually happy with just breaking even. If you manage to come out of the laning stage pretty much even with the opponent, I feel like you've done a pretty good job. See, the McGinnis here now, she tries to deny you from not only getting last hits, but also from harassing back so she can get some free farm on the tower. I'm focusing on, since I'm only focusing on last hits right now, I'm buying items that give me regen. So both the sprint boots and the regen item gives me a lot more lane sustain, because I know that I'm gonna get harassed a lot. And then I pick up high velocity mags. I like this item because when you're standing far away, it gives you a slightly higher chance of winning the last hit battle. Because if you're very close to a minion, you're much more likely to win the last hit because of the weapons having actual projectiles. So here now I'm trying to steal her farm a little bit. Then she punches me away, so gotta be careful about that. But so far this is a pretty clean laning stage. I'm already 700 souls ahead, and I've also kept my tower, my guardian's health fairly high. So sometimes, and this is something you'll notice a lot when you're laning in general, that's not just for Lash, is that sometimes when you harass them a lot, it doesn't necessarily do anything unless that makes them get less souls. Because sometimes you can get harassed a lot, but you're still winning all the last hits, and then it's actually in the opponent's favor. Because you never manage to force them out of lane with your harassment, and you never manage to get a kill. So you end up just basically wasting your time. Oh my god, she gets really low here. So that's why you sometimes got to think about like how much you're going to harass your opponent. You should basically should try to avoid sacrificing last hits and only harass when there's nothing else to do. Another cool trick, by the way, when you're shooting towers, for some reason I'm not doing it right here now, but you can slide backwards on the stairs while you're hitting the tower, because in this game, sliding makes you not use ammo. So what you can do is you slide backwards down the stairs while shooting the tower and walk back up. And that makes you use half as much ammo in total while hitting the tower. So it's a lot higher sustained damage. So yeah, so far this is like a pretty standard laning stage. Now we have reached above 3k souls. It means that we now have the Lash ult. Now we are a pretty big power spike when we hit 3k, and this is something to be very wary of as Lash, is to know when you're strong. See, now I'm playing a lot more aggressive because I know I have my ult. See, I already killed her there without my ult. So now I'm deciding to go in, boom, and there we go. Because Lash has a very strong ultimate, you gotta be very wary of your timings. And when you hit 3k souls is when you have your ultimates. Also, by the way, I have a guide in-game. So if you ever play Lash and you're wondering what items to buy, you can go in-game and you can find AverageJonas Spirit Lash guide in the buy menu when you play Lash. And it might help you. Oh, now I'm doing the sliding thing. See? Sliding backwards, not using ammo while shooting. They recently added jump pads to this game. And that favors Lash a lot more than most characters because of how much verticality it gives you without using your grapple. Because in the beginning, before you buy rapid recharge, you don't really have that much mobility with grapple. It's got a reduced range until you level it up as well. So when you play these side lanes here, you can very quickly jump pad into the lane next to you, and that is something you should always be on the lookout for. If you're noticing that your tower, your guardian is being pushed in the neighbor lane, you can literally spend less than 10 seconds on just jump padding up and ganking. So the next item I bought here now are cold fronts. Cold front is a pretty cool item for Lash because you can cast it right before you ground strike, and the cold front will actually follow you down and hit them. And the reason why you want to cast it first is because you want to do the ultimate plus slam combo before they're able to react by using abilities. So it kind of just like increases the threshold for how you can insta-kill them before they have any counterplay. If you ground slam, oh, here we go, we're diving in again. Ooh. If you cast cold front after the ground strike, you risk that they can get away by either using immunities or blinks, warp stone, a lot of different ways. So yeah, so now this lane is pretty solidly won. You can see I'm 2.5k souls ahead of McKinney's. That's not necessarily very common as Lash. I think in most cases you would rather play duo lane. I don't think he's that great at solo lanes, so matchups are okay. I feel like I got a little bit lucky this time too. Got some pretty nice timings and kills. And now we're in a pretty good spot to start roaming and also start looking at jungles, because now it's past the 7-minute mark. We can start to jungle. I usually go for Flog first if I play solo. And then I always max ground strike, like the damage. And I put 1 point in grapple for the lower cooldown. And then another point in grapple, and then I max out my ult. My build is more focused around cooldown reduction and spell lifesteal. So I max out my ult before Flog. Some people like to max Flog first, but that's just a playstyle. Alright, here we go. Here seems like we're getting into a fight. See, now I'm ganking in the neighbor lane. Got a nice ult on 2 players there. Mr. Great Talon is dead. And I think this might be, yeah, we're going in for more. Hitting this guy too. A nice little double kill here. So this is one thing that is very important when you play Lash, is realizing how quickly you can get from one lane to another and when you should gank. So you always have to like check the minimap. Is this a situation where it's possible to gank? Are these heroes, can I even kill these heroes? For instance, Grey Talon is very squishy. The biggest trick with Grey Talon is to make sure that you ult him or jump him after he's used his jump, because then you can follow up after him and you can toss him back into the ground. If you ult him before he uses his jump, then it's going to be much harder because he can jump after you slam him into the ground. Because if you can keep Grey Talon on the ground, he's not very scary. So yeah, so far we've gotten through the laning stage pretty well. Now everybody starts roaming a little bit more. It's a little bit of skirmishing back and forth. And this is pretty standard stuff. We already have a 9k souls lead at 12 minutes, which is pretty good. You'll notice also that the way I play Lash is a little bit greedier than some other people. I play him like a pseudo carry. Some people, they roam around and fight all the time. I definitely try to always clear out all the jungle camps around my lane as much as possible. And I'm not afraid to just shove the lanes for a bit instead of joining every team fight. And that's also why you can see how far ahead I am in souls. It's a slightly greedier playstyle, but it also is represented in the fact that one of the key items for my build is Divine Kevlar, which costs 6,300 souls. The build is greedier, but it also scales much higher than most Lash builds that kind of instantly go for like superior stamina and stuff like that. So, okay, we have a little skirmish here with Mr. Abrams. We both ult, and it's like a weird interaction where it depends on who casts it first. It ends up being me. He's 1 HP. If he gets away, I'm quitting this game for good. Okay, he's dead. So now that you've like survived the laning stage, you gotta ask yourself like, what's next? And that's a generic tip. That's not just for Lash, but it's to think about unlocking your flex slots. You can hover over these at the bottom and you can see that we haven't gotten any of them. So either we need to kill one walker, or we need to kill all walkers, or we need to kill one set of base guardians, or one shrine. So right now, because we have 0 walkers, it kind of limits the amount of upgrades we can buy without having to sell our items. So it's something we should start thinking about pretty soon. When you're like at least passing like the 20-25k souls mark, you should really start thinking about flex slots. See, I've picked up superior cooldown, rapid recharge, improved burst now. I've actually started to buy improved burst a little later nowadays. The exception is in this game because I'm playing against Abrams and Shiv, who are both high HP and tanky. But I sometimes, if I'm having a good game, I will actually go Divine Kevlar before improved burst, simply because the main point of improved burst is that it does percentage-based damage based on the enemy's health. So early in the game, that's not necessarily going to do that much because they don't have that much health points yet. So this one will naturally scale to late game where Abrams and Shiv starts to get really tanky. This is something that's pretty interesting. Right now, I am farming the Sinner Sacrifice, punching them. These ones give a lot of souls. You should always farm those. And I'm trying to be aware of what's happening on the map. I see that the urn is here. And the urn is a pretty... it can give a pretty big swing in souls. Always try to stay near it because either you can contest them from picking it up or you can contest them from dropping it off. So in this case, I'm just farming nearby, making sure that the objectives on our half of the map are pretty much always farmed, because you're not taking advantage of the maximum amount of souls you can farm if there's a bunch of creep camps available on the map. They should like be farmed as much as possible. Okay, so now they're killing our tower, our guardian, and I'm feeling pretty strong, so I'm not too scared of going in 2 versus 1 here. Oh, but seems like I probably should have been because I just overextended and died. And you know what the problem is? Did you see that big ball there? Those were 1,400 souls that I just dropped because I've been jungling a lot, and that's why that was very bad. We do not do that. If you've had a big jungle session and you have a lot of souls that can be lost on death, please do not just jump into a fight unless you're 100% sure that it's winnable. So that was what we call a tactical throw. Yes. Okay, so we respawn straight away. We get one person in ult. We toss him back into the tower. By the way, one thing I will say about Lash is that his ult is really hard to use. His ult requires a lot of positioning, a lot of very quick decision making, a lot of flicking back and forth depending on where your enemies are, and a lot of peripheral awareness. One thing that I use the ult for a lot is to displace enemies into walkers and guardians. You'll see that that is something that is very popular to do because some heroes are really hard to burst down. And also, because this build is so focused on having low cooldowns, you don't have to be afraid of just ulting one person. You don't have to go for these like huge combo plays because you get your ult back in 40 seconds once you have the Divine Kevlar. So it is fine to just go for picks too. But of course, like, if you want to have that big Twitch clip moment, then that's understandable. Now we're about almost 20 minutes into the game. You'll notice how we only have one flex slot, and that is already starting to be an issue for me. This is if I want another spirit item now, I would have to consider if I need to sell the cold front. So this is kind of forcing us also to try to now take the final walker. Okay, so here seems to be a skirmish going on here. So the Dynamo on our team runs into them. This is not a good place to fight in, by the way. This is where Infernus wants to fight. You don't really want to fight there. That is not a good spot to fight in. See, now we just got owned because our positioning was really bad, and suddenly the souls advantage that we had is completely negated. Now suddenly they are in the lead. Fighting in narrow corridors is something you never want to do with Lash because you basically hit like a wet noodle. And heroes like Infernus, they want to be in corridors. They can put the burn, when they do Flame Dash and they put the burning path on the ground, they do tons of damage, which gives them tons of lifesteal. And it just puts you in a really awkward spot. So suddenly we are behind. Okay, so now I got 2 people in my ult here. And I took back my unsecured souls. Thank you. By the way, guys, another thing to remember, when you ult with Lash and you slam after, try to aim more down than you think. This is something that I've learned after doing a lot of these ult slam combos, is that the higher up you are, the more down you need to aim, because either one, they have time to move a little bit and they're most likely, you have to anticipate what direction they're most likely to move in. So for instance, if you toss them into a corner, you already know that they're probably going to run the other way. And if you're very high up, they can actually run for a little bit or even dash once. And the range on the ground slam is bigger than you think. So try to teach yourself to aim a little bit more down with the slam and you'll have a higher accuracy with hitting it. Because in the beginning for me, what happened so many times was that I ulted, I tossed them into the ground, and then I just missed my slam. I'd like overshot my slam and they all just ran slightly behind me. So really try to just think about aiming slightly more down because the hitbox is bigger than you think. And another thing also, if you know that you're playing in someone who's using superior stamina or has a lot of stamina, you can also sometimes linger in the air. Like you can ult, you can throw them into the ground, and you don't actually slam. You can do one more grapple, for instance, and then slam after they have corrected their movements. That is also a way of guaranteeing that you're gonna hit them. All right, so you'll see how snowbally this game is because we had a solid lead and suddenly we are kind of behind on souls and they've pretty much destroyed our base. But luckily we had a nice defense here. So yeah, you can say this is pretty even again. One thing to also think about is that which team has like the best hyper carries to scale into late game. You'll see that they have an Infernus that has good farm. And they have Shiv, which just counts as 2 heroes because he's incredibly broken. And the only hyper carry in our team technically is Ivy, but she only has 15k. You can play Sev that way too, but most Sevens, they normally go the ult build these days. And Infernus will eat 7 alive. So far this game is pretty even though. Both teams have made some pretty good team plays, but you could notice how one fight in this corridor here that was like really bad positioning from us ended up with us losing most of our base. And here we have another fight. Dynamo is already dead, which is not ideal, so we don't really want to full commit because Dynamo is like the key player in our team fights. And then I do a pretty bad ult here, but you have to remember when you buy Divine Kevlar, sometimes you just ult just to stay alive because it gives you a shield. Sometimes you also have to think about one thing, and that is target priority. So you see right now, you have 3 teammates dead, and there's a lot of people here on this team. Some of them are low HP. Some of them, like this guy, for instance, is not as low HP. but he's almost a guaranteed kill if you get him in the ult. So you'll notice how when I'm defending the base, I'm going for the safe kills that can also stall time for my teammates to come back. So I'm jumping up. I try to quickly look around me. Oh, I see him. I ult and I toss him in. Oh, and I missed my slam. You see that? I missed my slam, but he's a little squishy arrow man, so it's fine either way. So Grey Talon is very fast. So if you're slamming from very high up, make sure you let him dash or like start running first so you have an idea of what direction he's gonna go in. Now the snowball is kind of rolling the other way because, well, not technically, but like we've killed Grey Talon. We kind of want to force fights here. It's pretty difficult to go for mid boss, but then Dynamo and Ivy gets a huge pick on Shiv, and this late in the game when the base is almost gone, getting one pick can be a deal breaker. So try to also have in mind that they can see you on the minimap if you're farming the lanes. Oh, and here, see, once again, I'm making sure. Did you see how, okay, this was a perfect example of what I explained earlier, how try to aim more down than you think when you're slamming. Notice how, first of all, I'm going for Great Talent again because I know that he has a lot of verticality and it's my responsibility to deal with him because it's much easier for me than my other teammates. And number two, I'm making sure that I'm aiming much further down with my slam after they land because one, I'm so high up that they can probably move a little bit. And two, I know that if they are gonna run in a direction, they're gonna run towards their own base because base is home and home is safe. So take this into consideration and try to estimate what direction are they gonna take. So I'm instantly clocking Mr. Great Talon. I do 2 grapples. I grab him and I also grab the guy on the ground. And look how much I'm aiming down. See? Did you see that? And because I aimed that much down, I managed to get both of them. So that is something that just like have that in the back of your mind, that there is a very big radius in front of you and a very small radius behind you. So that is why you should always look more down than up. Okay. So this is where most people start throwing, because now we're like, oh, we're in their base, time to throw. I have Diviner's Kevlar, so I'm looking for an ult opportunity. I get a stun here. Oh, Jonas, you're in a... Oh boy. Okay. And then in... Ooh, that's a nice dodge there. Dynamo dodges. I try to grab one, but that's a pretty bad ult, to be honest here. And suddenly everyone is fleeing for their lives. And Pocket is destructoiding me. And the Walker is still up. So... That's unfortunate. This is very typical, by the way, that it's much easier to defend than attack, because in your base you have the patron attacking, you also have a lot of high ground. It's much easier to have an overview as a defender, and also if the fight gets stalled, then that's the defender's advantage because they can always zipline back into the base and heal back up. In general, when you're fighting in their spawn, you gotta be extra wary, and there's like guardians and towers everywhere, and it's much harder to get an overview for the attackers. So while I'm dead, there's something happening over here. I see Shiv gets a kill on Ivy. That's pretty bad. And there is... Oh, it looks like 7 might. It's not looking good for 7 either. Now we lost 2 teammates. But then also... Okay. So now they are like, oh my god, we are up 1. Let's go. And then Dynamo calls that he has his ult, so I'm here to try to assist. That's a beautiful dodge, by the way. Dynamo made us dodge both of those. This is a pretty interesting kind of weird combo where he ults, I pull him up, and back into the ult. Ideally, you would want Dynamo to... And that was just like a bad decision and unfortunate timings. Ideally, when Dynamo ults, you want to just ground slam into them and do as much damage as possible. And then right before the ult ends, you want to jump back up and then cast your ult so that it becomes a chain stun. Because right now we kind of just like stacked our stuns, and that's not ideal. So that Dynamo ult kind of saved us from losing the game there. So now there's a big fight happening over here in the middle. I'm not sure why we're suddenly fighting here, because there's no objective right now. Maybe we're trying to decide for a... Oh, there we go. Oh, that's a juicer. I did die for that though. I think I speak for a lot of other Lash mains when I say that once you see a potential 3 or 4 man ult, you will always try to do it, even though it's not always a good idea. Because in that situation there, if there's not enough follow-up or if the positioning isn't correct, then it's not gonna turn into kills. So now you see that they're pushing into the base again. Our patron is about to get blasted. And it's about to be a 3 versus 6 here when I respawn now. So how do you defend a 3 versus 6? Let's see how this goes. Alright, so they're getting into the pit. And then, okay, and this is something that fucking pisses me off, by the way. When you're like, there's a random lamp post or a sign on the wall or the patron blocking your line of sight and your ult does not go off. Not cool. Shit happens. Alright, so then you still get the shields from the Diviner's Kevlar. By the way, notice how when you have Diviner's Kevlar, when you ult, look at this. You have 1800 health, but you also have 1100 spirit shield and 750 bullet shield with this build right now. Alright, so let's see. So it's currently a 2v6 right now. So I'm just trying to stall as much as possible. Oh, that's a big kill. I actually think that they could potentially have ended here, but they decided to kind of greed a little bit. Get a good silence glyph off on this guy, and then suddenly he's very low. I feel like there's a potential chance that they could have... Oh my god, look at this lifesteal, by the way. This is the cool thing about this build. You have so much more sustain. Did you see that? Just constantly healing back up. And suddenly they decide to retreat. And we've defended the base once again. Okay, so now we're going for the mid boss. It's By curse. Fuck this Lash. Oh, that's great. All right, so Pocket comes in and tries to steal, instantly gets shut down. And then, okay, guys, do not try to steal the gem if there's a Dynamo. Dynamo can just stand there in the middle with his ult, and you'll just end up suiciding, like you did there. Jacob Lash is indeed an asshole. Okay, so... See, now this is a pretty good way of dealing with strong individual carries. Just toss him away from his team. So at this point I wasn't trying to make in like fancy ults or anything. I was just trying to grab one of their heroes. Oh my god, look at that damage. Oh my god, look at that lifesteal. This is one of my favorite parts about my build that is different from a lot of other Lash builds, is the Spirit Lifesteal. Healing booster, Spirit Lifesteal, Diviner's Kevlar. I think there's a bug here because it says I have 2 silence glyphs, but I think I have Mystic Reverb as well at this point. The lifesteal is like 60% spell lifesteal plus Flog also lifesteals a lot. Alright, so just look at the health bar here. 100 health. I actually had 15 health at one point there. And I jumped back in and I slammed. Look at that. And now because of the cooldown reduction, I have my ult again. And this is just like a... See, when the ult is this low cooldown, you don't have to like think too much. Just kind of just try to do something. Okay, now we're bullying this guy again. When you can, make sure you always bully the flying men. Oh, Oh, 600 health. Oh, shite. Okay. Oh god, I missed my slam. I didn't aim enough down there, by the way. See if you don't aim. But that's hard also because there's a wall there, so it's very easy to hit the wall instead. So yeah, this was overall a pretty clean Lash game. I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of VOD review tutorial guide formats. I will be doing more of those. Let me know in the comments below what hero you want to see next. And yeah, I'll see you for more exciting Deadlock videos in the future. Hope you enjoyed watching. Boom!